Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because we're going to be taking a look at the work in progress decompilation project for Sonic Advance 2. And if you weren't aware, there were 3 different Sonic Advance games on the Game Boy Advance, and they were all a ton of fun and felt like an extension of the 2D Sonic games we all know, love, and remember from being a kid. I played them all back in the day, really enjoyed them, and they feel like traditional 2D Sonic while also having their own look, feel, and vibe going on. And getting this game decompiled and ported over to PC and other platforms is absolutely awesome, because if you can't tell already, this game never ran in 16:9 widescreen on the Game Boy Advance. It was not the right aspect ratio. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, down below hit like and subscribe and read that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. But honestly, decompilations and recompilations have been all the rage in like the last 12 months to 18 months. There's been so many projects announced, so many projects that have delivered. It really is kind of feeling like the future of retro gaming, because we have software emulation, we have mods of real hardware, and we have FPGA cores as well. But these decomp projects just absolutely allow you to play a game in a completely new way, because all the emulation in the world is not going to enhance the game, giving it this much more support for new widescreen aspect ratios, better graphics, and everything else. It is just a ton of fun. It basically makes it feel like almost a new release, even though it is a game that's decades old at this point in time, which is just wild. And if we take a look at the footage of the same game on Mr. FPG, you completely see the difference. Not only is the aspect ratio different, the camera is far zoomed in, the sprites definitely have a lot more pixels on them, and while a very pretty looking game and still a fun game, seeing it in the decomp status just gives it that breath of fresh air that basically allows you to play an old game you loved in a new way, or rediscover a game that you've never played before in a more modern lens, because going from this to this just absolutely is wild. Now do be aware that this is not a completed project yet. Most of the levels are going to be completely playable. Some of them are going to have slight graphical corruption, and the actual menus are going to be a little bit corrupted to the point in time where you're not quite sure what you're looking at. So this is not something that is finished. There isn't a build out there that you can just click download on. You're going to have to compile this from the GitHub code, which I will leave in the description below. I'll give you guys the link, and if you want to compile it, have at it, because it is worth checking out even if it isn't finished. And seeing bosses like this, the Robotnik fight, or Dr. Eggman, depending on how you want to call him, it works so much better in widescreen, because pay attention to where he is on the screen. Sure, he's not going all the way to the right because his code won't allow it, but if we move back over to the original, you'll see he kind of goes off screen at a few points in time, making it a little bit harder to read. So it is fun to get that extra video on the left and right hand side in 16:9. Makes the fight feel a little bit more fair versus not being quite sure what Eggman's doing off screen. But honestly, I absolutely just love projects like this, because they keep games alive for future generations. I totally get it. Someone like my nephew likes Sonic the Hedgehog but might not go and play a Game Boy Advance game, but if I sent him this and just told him to pop up to his computer and play it, he would probably do it all day long and have a fun time with it. And that's kind of how these things really do increase not only the overall visual clarity and performance of a game, but also give that game more life, because it brings it to newer audiences that might just want a more modernized approach. And honestly, getting extra screen real estate here to actually see what's ahead of you and where you need to jump is going to make Sonic Advance 2 feel like a slightly fairer game as well, because on the Game Boy Advance screen, sometimes you felt like you ran into an obstacle that you barely had a chance to react to before it was already in front of you, where here in 16:9 it works a lot better. And let's take a look at that same area again on Game Boy Advance. You can see the colors are a little bit more muted, that lava's a little bit more brown than red, and Sonic's a little bit darker of a blue. Both look really good, but the best part is once this decomp is finished, you're going to have the options to actually decide which version you want to play. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what's the one Game Boy Advance game more than any other you would love to see decompiled and made into a port. For me, I think Mother 3, the English translation, if that was recompiled, I would absolutely love playing that on a modern platform. As we move back over to the decomp in and of itself, you can see here, it just looks absolutely stunning. But let's do a soundtrack sample. First, we're going to do the decomp music, then we're going to do the Game Boy Advance original. So listen, see if you hear any quality differences or issues in the decomp, and I'll be right back to show you a lot more of this awesome game. I mean, honestly, I'm having a hard time telling them apart, and I would say both sound like they should, even if I don't think the Game Boy Advance had the greatest audio capabilities in the world. I always felt like it was just a little bit too bassy, and I kind of felt like it was a really low sample rate on pretty much any game out there, but honestly, it sounds good coming out of the speakers here on the Decomp, and it sounds good coming out of Mr. FPJ as well, and it's always fun to be able to compare these versions side by side when we talk about decomps and recomps, so you can see just how much different they are. Now, you will see as we get a little bit lower into the stage here, there is going to be some graphical corruption in that background layer because, again, this is not a completed project. The developers are still working on it, and I'm sure by the time it is done, it'll be completely seamless. You'll just think it is a 2025 or 2026 PC release, but don't go in expecting perfection and you won't be disappointed. I did talk to a few people that have played this game, and they have played it from start to finish and seen the credits scroll. You'll see a little bit more dramatic there in that background layer, some corruption, probably just pulling from the wrong memory address and not actually being able to specify what background layer is supposed to be back there, because a lot of times when you see those things, it's just kind of a memory corruption issue or a read error, but in a decomp it might just be some of the code isn't strung together the way it should, and that's not a critique against the game whatsoever. It's just a statement that this is not done, so expect to see some of these bugs. Like right here, you can see some of that top sky layer, those clouds are definitely coming up with the graphics that should not be there. But I do love the colors in this game, and I think they look even better on the decomp. Getting this in a higher resolution, getting it at 16:9, it just makes the game look that much prettier, and I really do think the widescreen makes it that much more playable, even though there's going to be a ton of death pits that you're just going to have to deal with along the way. And you'll see if we actually pop back out to the menu, you can see some of the graphics are drawing correctly, but the overall character selection stage is going to have a lot of that corruption at the bottom, and when we get to the stage select zone, you're going to see basically the same thing. It seems like some of the menus and background layers can have issues here and there, but for the most part, I'd say this feels like 80 to 85% done, and I went through the GitHub notes, and they say that most, if not all, of the calls are 100% strung together correctly. It's kind of just in the cleanup phase. And don't think these are small projects either. Decompiling the code from source code into something that you can actually use, and then recompiling it into a port, a source port indeed, that would actually work on another platform is a heavy lift, but that's what's really going on here. It makes me think how many other fun projects we could have. I'd love to see a Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 decompilation. There's so many games out there, but if you're going to be able to do this to one Sonic game, tell me what that is down below. I would be curious as well, because honestly, 2D Sonic just hits better than 3D Sonic these days. I have to say that the most recent releases haven't been fun, but they just haven't been exactly the same as I'd hope them to be. But one more soundtrack sample so you can hear the audio quality one more time, and again, I do like the audio in this game, just the Game Boy Advance sometimes feels a little bit too bass heavy for me. Go ahead and listen for 30 seconds and I'll be right back.
3, 2, 1, go!
Great piece of music, and I love the artwork in this level and all the colorways they've chosen, and that's the thing about the Sonic Advance games. They are just a ton of fun. I feel like if you didn't have a Game Boy Advance back in the day, maybe you just didn't get a chance to experience them, so something like a decomp project on Sonic Advance 2 and 3 is just so much fun to have, and this has definitely been going on for a while now. Figured I would actually talk about it now, just to give you guys a better sense of what's going on out there, because again, decomps and recomps are just going to end up being the future of retro gaming in a lot of respects. Sure, they take a lot more time to get running than an emulator that'll run absolutely every game, but the amount of enhancement improvements you can have in a decomp or recomp are just staggering, and this game just looks absolutely like a brand new experience. If Sega released this right now for $10 on something like an online store, Steam, PlayStation 5, or Xbox Series X, people would buy it, people would play it, and people would have a ton of fun with it. It feels both modern and retro at the same time, and that's because it is a retro game modernized via decompilation of the code and porting it into a new platform. But definitely check this one out. Again, it isn't finished, so don't expect perfection, and remember, you will have to compile it yourself. But we're done, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.